thousands of pages long. So how will this deal set us up for the rest of the recovery, such as it is? Let's bring in James Pethokoukis, economic policy analyst at the American Enterprise Institute and a CNBC contributor, and Stephanie Miller, managing director of Fiscal Note Markets. James, let me start with you. Is this an appetizer for a main course that might come in 2021 or another round of appetizer stimulus next year?
I would think that this is more of the main entree, and that to use that metaphor, in 2021 may see maybe some side dishes. I think it's going to be very hard, even if Democrats win those 2 Georgia Senate seats, which we've been talking about, to get a lot more money than this in 2021. Certainly Democrats wanted more, particularly not in this bill, is the maybe $200 billion or more for state and local governments. That didn't happen. Democrats would like to try to get that in 2021. I think that's going to be very, very difficult. But the thing is, there's a lot going to be happening in 2021. So Democrats want that state and local government money. They're going to want infrastructure for Biden. They're going to want those unemployment benefits extended after March. There's things Republicans are going to want. They're still going to want that liability shield. They're going to want those Trump tax cuts extended. So what we may end up seeing in 2021 is all those things perhaps coming together in some, to use the metaphor again, in some sort of big fiscal stew. I mean, I think that could happen.
So you see the parameters of the deal-making process that might take place in 2021. On the one hand, GOP wanting liability protection, protection for the Trump tax cuts, and the Democrats wanting infrastructure and other monies. Stephanie, whatever happened to the $2+ trillion that was part of the deal talk back before the election? Did both sides just fumble the ball here?
Well, I love that. I mean, we could go even further back. In late spring, it was $3.5 trillion. Yeah. So it keeps shrinking. And so to your question, I think, and to the point of this conversation is, are we going to ever actually hit that much spending? And the momentum last March, taking us back months ago when the CARES Act passed, to me felt like, wow, we're going to be getting these huge, like potentially $1 trillion stimulus packages like every 6 to 8 weeks. Like the kind of, we have to throw money at the problem, we have to solve the problem, in late March felt palpable in Washington. And since then, it has become much more measured. And I'm looking at a tweet right now from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the most progressive members of the House, being a little bit critical that this bill is, as a total package, is $2.5 trillion because it includes more government funding as well. And she hasn't seen the text yet. Members haven't seen the text yet, and they're supposed to vote on it today. So she's like, if this is the biggest bill in U.S. history, or the second biggest bill in U.S. history, and we haven't seen the text, that's a problem. So the big price tag is not just like an easy thing for all Dems to get behind. And I think some of the nuance of how tightly the majorities are going to be in the new year, as Jimmy was saying, are spot on.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been, Jim, a lot of criticism over the years about bills that nobody's read that gets passed, and this is going to clearly be one of them because you can't read. I took Evelyn Wood, but you can't speed read that fast. But let me go back to that thing.
It's longer than a Stephen King novel.
Oh, my goodness, yes. I mean, it's longer than Obama's memoir, for goodness sakes. So let's go back to that idea. Right before the election, both sides were talking about, I forget whether it was $1.6 trillion on the GOP side and $2.2 on the Democratic side. Was it simply that both sides couldn't allow the other to claim success? Is that why those numbers melted away and there was no pre-election deal?
Well, I hate to be cynical, but being in Washington, D.C., that's always a good baseline. And I don't think it's crazy to assume that no one wanted to give anybody else any victories before that election. But beyond that, Republicans certainly had, I think, a genuine skepticism from their point of view that we needed any kind of stimulus package anywhere near the size of what Democrats were talking about. They were concerned that those unemployment benefits would actually keep people from looking for jobs. They felt the economy was actually bouncing back quite nicely. So I think there were, from their perspective, real concerns among Republicans whether we needed a stimulus bill anywhere near the size the Democrats were talking about.
And yet the president was speaking out in favor of those bigger numbers. It's curious. But
Washington, the president said what Mitch McConnell thought were two different things.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.